Failing forward once again. It's Wednesday. You know what that means.
Laughing aloud now, magic in the air. Wands roll around us, cast away our care. Friends in the hallways, adventures we find. Spells and enchantments, trouble on our mind. That's so wizard flow. Life is a spell we know. We're casting joy and glow. That's a wizard show.
Good morning and welcome. It's Wednesday. It's 8 o'clock. It's the second day of April 2025. Really? Wizards? Really? Again? Really? How? Why? Where? Now, I saw this story yesterday and I thought, oh, well, it's April 1st. It's got to be an April Fool's joke. There's a D&D themed, Baldur's Gate themed Stardewvally mod, and Wizards somehow mistakenly told them to take it down. Nah, that's got to be an April Fool's thing. But then I read it more, and I was like, this doesn't read like an April Fool's joke. There's nothing silly about this. Well, it's been confirmed. It is true. Somehow Wizards of the Coast mistakenly issued a order to take down this Baldur's Gate themed Stardewvally mod. So this is called Baldur's Village. It's a fan mod of the extremely popular Stardewvally video game. Most of us know Stardewvally. It's a very comfy, cozy, pixel-based game where you farm and you raise animals and you crafts and, you know. So this mod has been around for a while. It's got hundreds of downloads. Fan created, you know, just a loving embrace of Stardewvally, and they modded some things to be vaguely connected to Baldur's Gate. Some of the NPCs might now look like characters from Baldur's Gate, like this guy. Some of the names changed, you know, typical modding, nothing, you know, earth-shattering. Well, Wizards of the Coast issued a takedown order. Hey, you take that down. A DMCA, take that order. You're violating our thingies. Remember this? These are the Wizards of the Coast, Hasbro, the same people who want to brand Dungeons and Dragons and Baldur's Gate. We'll get to that in a moment. With anything they can, somehow mistakenly set the attorney mistakenly to get the forms, to mistakenly fill out the forms, to mistakenly send the forms, and then mistakenly contact the people who put up the mod and mistakenly threaten them with legal issues if they don't take the mod down. And then they went, oh, whoops, we didn't mean to. Yeah, you don't have to take it down. Ignore that. Yeah, it was a mistake. This was after, of course, not only the Dungeons & Dragons fan base, but the thousands and thousands of members of the Stardewvally fan base went, what the fuck? What the fuck? Because there was outcry. So I don't know how you mistakenly file a legal action. Hey, man, Stephen Glicker was just talking about this. It's Stephen Glicker. I love that guy. I don't know. I mean, how does somebody mistakenly file a legal action? Was it like, well, we thought we were filing a thing to get a sandwich order, but somehow Bill and legal filled out the wrong form. Oops. Sorry. Apparently it's the Stephen Glicker is saying it's some automated thingy. I assume if it comes from Stephen Glicker, it's more true than my silliness because he is a much more in tune with what's going on. If you guys have never had a chance to check out our good friend Stephen Glicker over at Roll for Combat and his latest Kickstarter, please do. The guy is great. He's got so much information. I owe so much to watching his channel and trying to make myself better so I can be at least somewhat cool as he is. You are awesome, Steven, and I appreciate you. All right, but that's not all. No, Wizards of the Coast couldn't let it go. It feels like I just said, yeah, I feel, wow, how can Wizards of the Coast, top the whole VTT sigil thing. They've got to take a week off, right? No. Now, mind you, these are just all rumors, hearsay. Some of them more accurate than others. Cannot confirm 100%. A lot of these I am blatantly stealing from a story Stephen Glicker did. Now, in regards to the Wizards of the Coast shutting down Adventurers Guild, Stephen just talked about that on a video I saw of his. I have reached out to the Southern California AG to see if that's any truth to that. I don't know why they'd shut it down. It doesn't really cost them anything. It gives them free advertising, and it's a great way for new players to get introduced to Dungeons and Dragons. And Wizards doesn't really have to do any work to get Adventurers Guild up and running. Now, this isn't the first time the rumor that they're going to shut it down has circulated. In fact, it was at least a year ago that the rumor was, they're going to shut down the Adventurers Guild. And again, I reached out to the AG, and again, it was like, I don't know. We've heard that, but we don't know if it's true or not. So I don't know. That's it feels like it's something Wizards would do. I don't know why Wizards would shut it down again. If you don't know what the Adventurers Guild is, it's the thing, the officially sanctioned Dungeons and Dragons thing. It used to be known as the RPGA, and it's had other names. I reached out to the Southern California AG, but I assume Steven knows more than I do. Like I said, I should just have him come on. Steven, do you want to come on and talk about these at some point? Again, why? Now, remember when I talked to the AG rep last year, there was another company that they worked with who they were really hoping would buy out the AG from Wizards of the Coast. I don't remember the name. I'm hoping Edward will reach out to me sometime today and we can follow up on that. But I know that there was like, this isn't the first time. And again, it's like, why? Why? It's free advertising. You don't have to do any work, Wizards. They do all the work. They literally spend their weekends giving you free press and introducing people to the hobby who might not otherwise done it. And you're now going to go, hey, we don't want you to do that anymore. Blink, 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 blink. Deer in headlights. But why stop there? Why stop there? Wizards of the Coast looked at the disaster that was the Sigil VTT thing over the weekend, and Crawford said, we can do better. I don't know. That doesn't seem controversial enough. Can we beat up a baby chicken or something? So not only is that, but Wizards has announced they're going to cut back on going to conventions. They're going to cut back. They don't really see conventions as a way to facilitate their communication with the fans. They want to focus more on whatever. Now, for those of you who have longer than a 3-second memory like me, you might remember that a while back, or sometime around mid to late 2023, something happened that got Wizards in a lot of hot water. Of course, that would be the OGL scandal and the Pinkerton scandal. And one of the things Wizards of the Coast said as part of the whole parachute to recover from the disaster that was the 2023 OGL scandal, oh, well, maybe we've lost touch with the fans. We need to start going back to conventions. We haven't really been going to conventions for a while. We need to go back to conventions. We need to show the fans that we're out there. So that was a big thing out of one of the many stories that came out of 2023 was they felt they hadn't been at conventions. They weren't at conventions. I argued, but you're always at conventions. What do you call sanctioned Magic the Gathering, sanctioned Dungeons and Dragons, and those gigantic posters and stuff, and the booths? You're there with literally conventions exist because of your 50-year-old game, but they felt they weren't enough, so they started showing up again. Now, between 2023 and this story, they were at cons again, but the booths were never really stellar. They were often in the far back, and they were, from everybody I've talked to, and this is a very limited, obviously limited, small group, but whenever I asked people about if they were there, it was like, yeah, but they were in the back. Yeah, it was a small booth. Yeah, there was hardly anybody there. Nobody really showed up for their talks, which is interesting because thousands of people bought tickets to see, Dimension 20 do live play, and thousands of people bought tickets to see Critical Role live play. And Universal is already saying at least the California Wizards of the Coast haunt thing is sold out. So you would think Wizards of the Coast would want to be in the public. They'd want people to see a friendly face to attach to the hobby. They'd want to see the big booths. Now, I remember years ago going to Comic-Con in San Diego, and the D&D thing was always amazing. They had like the walkthrough inn, the walkthrough dungeon. They had just gigantic, amazing displays. But then I guess at some point in time, they cut down on those, which, okay, it's expensive and whatever. But then 2023, and they're like, oh, we're going back to cons. Well, now they're saying we're going to cut back on cons. We don't want the public to see us. We want to focus our energy on other things, like Magic the Gathering. Yeah, feels like, according to, now this is from Wizards, that they are claiming we're focusing less on D&D and more on Magic the Gathering because in addition to stop going to the conventions, of course, we're focusing more on the branding of Dungeons and Dragons and the actual product of Dungeons and Dragons. We only have 6 products coming out in 2025. 2026, we're looking at 4 to 6 projects. 2027, 3 to 4. And then the continuing petering off between 2027 and 2030 because of the, Crawford saying 2025 Dungeons and Dragons only has a 5-year plan. So sometime between 2027 and 2030, there's going to be some petering off, dying out, drying up, focus on Dungeons and Dragons, but more focus on Magic the Gathering, which, let's face it, is a no-brainer. It takes very little energy for them to make a new Magic the Gathering product line. It takes very little energy for them to approach another company like Marvel or Final Fantasy, or I don't know, who haven't they done a crossover with? Sesame Street, and say, hey, let's do a thing. We'll do a Sesame Street Magic set. Would be pretty awesome. Could you imagine the Count as a vampire legend? Probably have something to do with counters and tokens. That would be so cool. I might buy the Sesame Street Magic the Gathering. If you do a Magic the Gathering Sesame Street themed thing, Wizards, I want credit because that would be brilliant. What's your commander? Big Bird. Oh fuck, we're dead. So yeah, they're Magic is easy. It doesn't require any energy whatsoever. They need a staff of 2? It literally prints itself. 90% of the new mechanics are just old mechanics with new names, except for banding. I don't know why I'm bring back banding. I guess I was the only person on the planet who understood banding. Me, the dyslexic kid. Meanwhile, math geniuses are like, I don't get banding. And I'm like, yeah, that one guy takes all the damage. Anyway, it's Subway. So yeah, focusing more on Magic and focusing less on D&D, that's a no-brainer. Because it takes no energy, no time, no money to make a new Magic set. You just reach out and say, hey, what haven't we done yet? Or what do we need to redo again? I don't know. It's been like a week since we did Innistrad. Let's do another Innistrad. And let's just look at the mechanics we've used and, I don't know, change the name. Instead of Dredge, we'll call it Gravebound. And then we'll reach out to Square Enix or Sesame Street or, I don't know, HP or, Coke and say, hey, do you want to do a thing? On the other hand, Dungeons and Dragons still, even if it's converting from physical to digital, requires work. And once I sell a player's handbook to Bob, well, Bob's not going to buy any more player's handbooks. So there's only a limited repetition of Dungeons and Dragons economy. Once you buy, you probably really don't need to buy that much more D&D stuff other than supplements and modules. And sure, dice and figures are a huge chunk of the money, and that dice and figures and accessories are pure profit. But even then, compared to the thousands of Magic cards people buy and the very little amount of money it takes to create Magic cards, as opposed to even for somebody like Laura Bailey who buys and has thousands of dice, or somebody with thousands of figures, it still trickles down to Magic making more money. Less work, more money, more widely accepted. And there's only like one Magic the Gathering controversy a year, as opposed to the nonstop rapid fire controversies that seem to be about Wizards of the Coast. And this all, let's wind it up here. This all comes again from them once again reaffirming us that they're focusing less on Dungeons and Dragons the game and more on Dungeons and Dragons the brand. Hasbro CEO has said Dungeons and Dragons the game does not make them money for reasons I just said. Wizards of the Coast CEO has said Dungeons and Dragons the game doesn't make us money. Crawford has said 5-year lifespan doesn't make us money. What makes us money is the brand. Stranger Things makes us money. The Universal Studios walkthrough haunted house thing will make them money. The Dungeons and Dragons the musical will make them money. When Dungeons and Dragons comes out for the phone, by the it'll make them money. Dungeons and Dragons pizza will make them money. Dungeons and Dragons meat snacks will make them. You laugh at Dungeons and Dragons pizza, but remember they did Dungeons and Magic the Gathering Hot Pockets. So yeah, it's easy branding D&D is easy. The name has an ingrained pop culture assumption. People have a built-in perception of what Dungeons and Dragons is. Even if you're playing Space Wars or superheroes, it still kind of all falls under the Dungeons and Dragons envelope. What are you guys doing? Oh, it's a game like Dungeons and Dragons. All right. Even people who have no idea have a idea. So that brand is built into pop culture. And that's why Hasbro will probably never, ever, ever let it go, because the brand is money. The Dungeons and Dragons t-shirt, the Dungeons and Dragons lunchbox, the Dungeons and Dragons flamethrower, that's money. But printing out a solid player's handbook and selling it for $60 to one guy and knowing that one guy might never buy any more product. Well, that's yeah. It sucks, but it makes 100% sense. The brand is money. The game isn't money. It's always going to go back to just being a niche. The explosion of popularity and coolness that we had between 2018 and 2023 was just, because so many things fell into place between Stranger Things, Critical Role, Stephen Colbert, Dungeons and Dragons becoming cool, the comic book, the movie, the hints of the television show, and then COVID, and suddenly everybody's at home playing D&D, and then that led to more Critical Role and Dimension 20, but then the bubble burst because it had to. And while we're cool, we're not as cool as we were last year. And we're definitely not going to be as cool next year. It's going to go back to being a small niche, which can only generate profit for 5 or 6 products a year, and then modules and things like that. But modules will probably be more and more online, because that way I don't have to pay anybody to print it out. And we want to go digital. We want to focus on the brand. We're taking energy away from the game and focusing more on Dungeons and Dragons the Flamethrower, because that's what makes us money. And with the exception of the killing the Adventurers Guild, which Steven says is probably going to happen, and which makes no sense, whatever, and somehow mistakenly filing a take that thing down and then going, oops, it was a mistake. Everything that I just said over the past 19 minutes makes perfect sense. That's what's so frustrating, is from a business point of view in today's economy, when you're dealing with a pop culture phenomenon like Dungeons and Dragons and how to continue to keep that phenomenon alive, it all makes sense. Focus on the cheap stuff, focus on the card game, focus on the brand, focus on things that's going to make us money and cost us very little. Plus, we're still Wizards of the Coast, Hasbro. We still have a huge debt we have to pay back. You know, we're still losing money for our shareholders, and there's no way, there's nothing we're going to do that's going to make D&D as popular as it was between 2018 and 2023. What we need to do is stop being dumb. Because everything Wizards is doing, Hasbro's doing, there's hundreds of other companies across the world, Square Enix, the Final Fantasy people, Nintendo, doing the exact same thing. Hey, Mario, the video game, doesn't make us as much money as it used to. Let's focus on branding Mario. Hey, Pokemon, let's brand that. Hey, I don't know what, the kids are, even Disney. Say what you will about Disney. They know how to brand Star Wars. They know how to brand the product. They know those t-shirts will always sell. So it's business 101, and it's Wizards of the Coast. If I take away the name Wizards of the Coast and just say this is what's going on, 90% of the people are going to go, yeah, that totally makes sense. I mean, I don't agree with it. I don't like it, but sure. So it's not what Wizards is doing. It's not what Hasbro is doing. Abandoning Power Rangers because they don't think it's going to make money. Abandoning Transformers because they don't think it's going to make money. Abandoning Star Wars when they had to deal with Star Wars. Abandoning G.I. Joe. Abandoning D&D because it's not going to make the money. It's how they do it. It's how they take these simple ideas, which make sense, and somehow choose to find the most ridiculous way to facilitate what should be simple, and find the most ridiculous way to upset the largest amount of people they can. It's similar to 4th edition. It's what they've been doing for years. It's like, and other companies do it better, and Wizards somehow just chooses to do it stupidly, self-destructive. Is it on purpose? Are they actively trying to sabotage themselves? Is it just, we don't care? We can fuck up all we want. We know you guys are still going to buy our game. We know idiots out there are still going to shill for us. We know Jeannie D and her millions of followers are going to play Barbie Dungeons and Dragons. We could literally, shoot Elminster and you guys would still buy the game. So fuck you. We're going to fire 90% of our digital video game staff, and then an hour later say, oh, we're going to do more digital video games. We're going to accidentally file a lawsuit against these people and then accidentally tell them, you don't have to. We're going to discontinue the Adventurers Guild because it's free press and it's a bunch of people doing work for us, so we should stop supporting that. That's why the whole theme of this every Wednesday that I share with you guys is what it is that Wizards is dumb. Just stupid. I mean, even my dyslexic never took a business lesson in my life, but I've worked in retail since I was 16. Dumb. Just self-destructive and dumb. Are they doing it on purpose? Are they purposely trying to destroy themselves in the hopes that they can trash the stock enough to sell it? except when they were offered a chance by the board of directors to split off Wizards and sell it as a separate entity, which was an idea that circulated last year and the year before, sell off Wizards, make it a separate entity from Hasbro. They said, no, we want to destroy ourselves on our own. We don't need any help. Thank you very much. Let's piss off the Stardewvally crowd because we don't have enough people angry at us. And there are Stardewvally fans all over the planet. Like, I will not be surprised if I'm watching the Yogcast today and one of the Stardewvally fans mentions it. I mean, at this point, there's really only one thing I can say, right? Just when you think they can't have another scandal and they can't do anything stupid, they do something stupid. Thanks, Stephen Glicker, for reaching out. Appreciate you and everything you do. Good luck with the next Kickstarter. Links down below to Stephen's Kickstarter for the new one. We'll probably have more on the Adventurers Guild story as soon as I hear back from my Adventurers Guild contacts. I leave you, people who are smarter than me, to ponder why Wizards of the Coast is doing yet another series of stupid. Is it just that's so Wizards?
Laughing aloud now, magic in the air. Wands roll around us, cast away our care. Friends in the hallways, adventures we find. Spells and enchantments, trouble on our mind. That's so Wizards, oh, 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 oh. Life is a spell we know. We're casting joy and glow, oh, oh. That's a Wizard show. Mischief in the classroom, potions gone astray. Flying through the quad, now brighter every day. Laughter we cry hard, sneaking out at night. Cloaks in the moonlight, everything feels right. That's so